mean, everyone's in our life for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn these skills, how to relate to difficult people, how to have hard conversations, how to have beautiful relationships and create them, but also how to handle the difficult ones, I feel like that's been a beautiful process of mine.
Hi, and welcome to the Healthy Adult Podcast. I am Lori Jean Glass, the founder of Pivot, and I am so excited today to have an alumni and someone I can call a friend, Mary Harper, with us today. Hey, Mary.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's so awesome to be here with you today. Kayla, who a lot of people know, our Director of Client Services, called me and said, hey, I think you should do a podcast with Mary. She has so much pivot in her bones now. And I'm like, sounds great. So here we are. So I'm super excited to jump into a conversation with you and catch up, hear how you're doing, and listen to some of the ways that Pivot has helped your life, challenged your life, and has given you opportunities to have more secure connections. So where do we want to start?
Maybe how I define pivot. I get a lot of questions.
I love that.
Yeah, like I get a lot of questions about what I do. I've been a few times. I work with my coach, Fernando, and everyone asks what pivot is, what it does. And to me, what pivot is it's learning yourself in a different capacity, in a much deeper capacity through your relations with other people. I feel like everyone is in our lives for our greater learning. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely given my mom as a masterclass. She's amazing, but she's definitely taught me a lot of amazing relational skills. And through this organization, my relationship with her has deepened, and we are able to have a really beautiful relationship because I have concepts of boundaries, what I need, safe topics, and topics that I try to avoid. It's been a really beautiful process for me to have these skills. Mm-hmm. And also in turn, I came to Pivot right after I had filed for divorce, but I wasn't convicted in my decision to file for divorce. And Pivot helped me understand so many concepts, but it really helped me get convicted in my decision to follow through with a divorce because of the developmental stages that I was experiencing through my daughter, who was coming to a sexual age and starting to explore relationships in her own way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's greatly helped me in many ways of my life, because to me, I love relationships. I love all the people around me, and to isolate a lot of teachers will say, maybe that difficult person in your life, you should, distance yourself from them or not have them in your life. But I just feel like it's a greater level of your spiritual evolution to be able to have those hard relationships. Because who wants to cut their mom out of their life, or who wants to cut people out of their lives? I mean, everyone's in our life for a reason. Mm-hmm. And when you learn these skills, how to relate to difficult people, how to have hard conversations, how to have beautiful relationships and create them, but also how to handle the difficult ones, I feel like that's been a beautiful process of mine that I really appreciate.
Oh, I love that. So that's a lot. I have the same thing when people ask me about Pivot. I kind of go into the 20-minute conversation because there's so much there, right? It's hard to define it in a couple of sentences. So I love kind of the space and the air that you're bringing to your definition, because it has been an evolution for you, right? It has been an evolution, and when you're talking about your mom and your daughter and these relationships and having relationships that are safe, but they're messy and they're challenging and they bring up emotions for you, and you found a way to be able to be relational in that context. What do you think was the most helpful tool with that? Was it like the circle boundaries? Was it learning your own developmental parts and your reactions and how you were responding? What do you find, or all of it?
Boundary is a huge part. And they were very helpful. I don't feel like I've completely mastered them, and I would love to master them. um, I feel like the greatest part of this work is that I've gotten to learn myself in a deeper capacity. Through these relationships that are in my life, I've learned myself in a deeper capacity. I've learned how to connect to myself in a deeper capacity. Mm-hmm. And, Eckhart Tolle, he quotes, like, the purpose of relationships is to understand yourself. And that's why we have relationships. So, what has been the most helpful? They all play on each other. I think boundaries is huge. I think understanding our relationships to people, to things, mm-hmm. is huge, because I think what really transforms your relationships with others is knowing yourself in a deeper capacity, right?
Yeah.
Knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
knowing those,
that's rude.
Yeah, your developmental parts, it sounds like, was really how you got to know yourself, and the beautiful layers inside of you, and the reasons why you do some of the things you do in real time, that has so much to do with the life experience you've had that has made you the beautiful woman you are today. The highs, the lows, the challenges, the celebrations, all of it. Right?
Yeah, I think the key is to really be able to catch things, like know thyself, and to catch yourself in real time, mm-hmm. right? Real time, and you can pivot in real time to where you can still manipulate that moment and not mm-hmm. lose it. Mm-hmm. Whereas before pivot, it would take me a day or two in a difficult situation to realize, to catch up, to respond in a way that I wished. But now I can catch it in real time, shift it, maybe push a pause or whatever I need to do in that moment that makes me able to kind of anchor into my heart. Mm-hmm. And
can you give us an example of something that's happened to you in real time?
I remember, so my mom, she's going to be our sensei here. So I remember after the first pivot, my mom would come over and she would just show up, right? And mm-hmm. she showed up, and I didn't hold on to my boundaries, and I was just overwhelmed with her being there. She showed up, and then she's like, I gotta go. And she lives an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So she showed up, and I started to get really activated, and my teenager got really frustrated. Why can't she just hang out? Why does it have to be so chaotic? And I was able to catch myself in the moment, and I looked at her, because really what I want to do is be acting in my loving essence, from my heart. And I just said, Mom, I'm glad to see. I was just able to catch it in the moment and show her my love, mm-hmm. and gently walk her to the door and keep my composure, close the door, and then process the moment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
After my first pivot, and I felt huge progress, because I was all my emotions were here. I was about to just.
So in the past, when you would have a reaction to something that your mom would do, and you would, using your words, process it in the moment, would that get you guys in kind of a bit of a gridlock? And
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty of two things you're talking about: the circle boundaries, knowing what that relationship is capable of holding for you. And the second one is knowing how to control your own developmental part if it got activated. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you have, growing up, was there some I mean, I know some of your story, but our listeners don't. So were there like significant things that happened for you developmentally that caused this uncomfortableness that you feel with your mom that you'd be willing to share? Was it like,
Yeah, she doesn't know how to manage and tolerate her emotions.
Mhm.
Therefore, she puts that on other people. And, from a young age, I was expected to like, it wasn't said, and she would be horrified if I had that conversation with her.
Mhm.
But like, I felt this over responsibility for her, even as a young age, even from a young age, that I didn't know how to process. And so she's taught me how I need to be empowered by managing and tolerating my emotions.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
And for example, like even today, I mean, she's almost 80 years old now. She'll call me and she's in a spin and she's dysregulated. And she will, I have to remember this is recorded. she'll, she'll call me dysregulated.
You know what YouTube is?
She'll call me dysregulated, and I'll realize where she is, and I'll be able to maintain kind of my equanimity, and I know where she is, and I'll answer her, and I'll say, "Mom, how are you?" And she's in her, she's in whatever dysregulated state she's in, and I say, "Mom, I hear you. I love you. I need to call you back in 20 minutes." And I will be there for you, but in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And so she knows I'm there. And by the time I call her back, and exactly whenever I tell her, she's completely regulated herself and managed herself. And she was just calling me in an unconscious spin.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and through that, she knows I'm there for her, and we're still able to, hold on to a beautiful connection, and like, it's a lovely thing because it's my mom.
What used to be probably a 3-week fight is now like a very short conversation that you can have with yourself so that you know exactly, what you can and cannot do in the context of that relationship. I'm curious about something. I don't know if this resonates with you or not. I know it has for many clients that, prior to understanding their own developmental parts, they would get into relationships with a partner or significant other. And that relationship would have similarities that would be challenging for the individual to take on, but yet they would just tolerate it because it was familiar. So, for example, in your past, would you get into relationships with a significant other or a BFF, and then all of a sudden they would take complete control over the relationship with you? Like, would you just get engulfed and then not be able to find your voice in the context of that relationship because of the way that it was with your mom?
I did. I mean, I married it. Like that was the longest relationship I've ever had. I mean, I was married for 15 years. Like I married that. But I also married someone that wasn't emotionally available. A lot of similarities with my mom because of unhealed patterns, unconscious patterns that I knew that felt comfortable to me. So, I mean, I was so surprised you gave me the dating module, my first pivot 1.0, because I thought it was a little premature. But
well, I did.
I mean, it was huge because I started, I just, going through the whole dating process. It was huge. Yeah. And it's so funny. Like I'll have conversations with guys of like the 5 perspectives. Yeah. And they're like, "Well, 2 out of 5, that's good." or 4 out of 5, that's good. That's 80%. Yeah.
Well, you know why I did that? I did that for several reasons. One is you are so relational. And I also know that big loving heart that you have is, wanting connection. And there was no way you were going to come and do a 1.0 for 5 days and leave and just walk away and put a bag over your head and not want to connect and find relationships. And so I knew that if you started seeing what it would actually be like to have a relationship where you were well met and well matched, that it would inspire you to stay in the work, to want to be able to see, wow, what am I actually capable of in terms of being able to have a connection and deep relationship. One of the things that I see a lot in clients initially too is just how much the lack of self-compassion for themselves and the feeling of failure from having relationships that just aren't working. It's one thing to have these big traumatic events in our life, and many of us have them, that really change a lot of who we are and also create different landscapes for relationships. It's another thing just to really kind of look at just the simplicity of, wow, do I have the esteem? Do I have the self-compassion? Do I know myself enough to really effectively find a partner that's best suited for me? Just that alone is a big pivot.
And I'm a huge fan of Abraham Hicks.
Yeah, me too.
The law of attraction of just like what you like. I'm kind of a manifester, and I know I'm a manifester, and the more you do this work, you attract it into your reality, into your world. And it's been really cool with that dating module, because now like I can navigate relationships really quickly. And I kind of explored this one guy who seemed to be a little narcissistic. The guy that actually got me to Glass House, Sir Brian O'Shea. I called him one day because I was just a little confused, and he was like, "Mary, that's narcissistic," because I don't want to label anyone. And I
Brian
O'Shea. I know. I was like, dang it, how did I fall into this? And he was like, Mary, give yourself some credit. You navigated this in 30 days. You've been talking to this person in 30 days, and you've already figured out what he is. Like, this is huge growth for you. Yeah. And so it's been really fun to like have that module and to kind of have some framework. I'm a little bit of an analyst, but to have that framework of how to like go, like developmentally compartmentalize and like understand people and love them where they're at, and are they compatible with me? Are we in alignment? To have that framework, how to thoughtfully respect and accept someone else, but realize, what am I manifesting here? I want to be in alignment with someone on the 5 developmental parts, or I want 5 out of 5,
Mm-hmm. You mean the 5 whole perspective areas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Parts, but like, yeah, the 5 parts of the whole perspective.
Yeah. Well, some of us have 5 parts of the developmentally.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but yeah.
You know what else also been really helpful for me that I really want to touch on is like, I've done a lot of like the parenting piece, and that's kind of what I'm starting to really explore with Fernando, my pivot coach, who's phenomenal. I adore him.
Yeah.
He's just recently given me the parenting module for the 2nd time, and I have 3 girls, and it's really helpful for me, and they're all in different developmental stages. But with my oldest, who's kind of entering the teenage years, to experience pivot, the pivot 1.0 with those young girls in their young 20s, and to see how they and I've done it too, don't get me wrong, but to see through their eyes and their shares and the experiential work with them, how they processed their trauma wounds from their dad. My daughter has that, and how to process that. And then also, like, as I get older, how have I acted out from my unconscious self of like trauma wounds with my dad in my relation to men? Like, that was really helpful to see that. And now to kind of step into that place of empowerment with the parenting module and like really consciously parent my children through that module. And I just recently went to Petaluma for a intensive weekend with Fernando, and we really explored my relationship to alcohol. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my relationships with like alcohol, with money, with being alone, with certain feelings, with my dad, like really explore that, how I can kind of shift into a greater place of empowerment as a mother of these three girls. And what do I want to be like teaching them, showing them?
I love what you're sharing, Mary, and it's so important. And that is the healthy adult concept, right? That is the healthy adult, that empowerment you're talking about. You know, we all have, you know, a gear that we can shift into. I used to hear a lot before I did my personal growth work about a higher self. And it always felt like it was something on a planet that was inaccessible to me, that I was never going to make it there, right? I did not have a rocket. I could not get up there. And when, you know, Pivot was created and really humanizing, personalizing, and internalizing that healthy adult inside of all of us, and knowing that we can shift into that at any time is such a gift. And what you're describing with your kids, I mean, that just touches me deeply, because it's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to amend our own behavior and changing and having an effect on the people around us. And I love that for you. I love that for your daughters. That's right. You have 3 daughters. 6 little eyes through the lens of Mary, looking at you and marrying back to you every day.
Well, and one of the things that I've learned as a parent is children don't learn by what you say; they learn by what you do. That is for them. And as my 15-year-old, she's beautiful. She's starting to get, you know, curious about boys and alcohol and everything. I want to show her, you know, that I'm, you know, in dominion of certain, you know, in very important relationships in my life, to act as an example for her.
That's right. I love that. Yeah. Many parents, I know myself included, before I really understood the power of parenting, you know, oftentimes I know I was told no a lot. No, Lori Jean, no, don't do that. Don't do that. No, don't do that. No. I never got, okay, don't do that, then do what? Like, don't cry and okay, then what am I supposed to do with the feelings? You know, don't say that. Well, then what am I supposed to say? Like, so many times parents will recorrect with just a firm no, and kids will learn no, but they won't really understand what is the reframe. What's the reframe?
Or what's the value here? Fernando's really helped me, like, instead of like punishment or discipline, like, what is the value? Or if there is discipline, what is the value that I want you to be learning here? And like really be conscious in those lessons with my kids. It's like, what do I really want? What is the value that I want you to understand from this situation?
That's right. Yeah. I love that. What are their ages now?
My oldest is 15, and then a 9 and a 7.
Wow, you're in the thick of it.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really exploring right now is energy management. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that I'm learning from my Pivot curriculum. Mm-hmm. But you know, how to be mindful of my energy with my children, because it's really easy for me, you know, for me to get busy with all of the responsibilities, and to really stay conscious of being in that healthy adult when I get tired, or on the weekends, or when we're pushing or we're traveling. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things I was recently talking to Fernando about exploring, is kind of like an energy management concept of, kind of a whole perspective.
Mm-hmm. The map of consciousness is helpful with that. It's a take on David Hawkins' work, and he's deceased now, but I think I gave that to you a long time ago.
You did.
Because your energy is like many of us. When we have a lot to do, there's a lot to consider. We're managing children and work and jobs and family and all of it. We have a tendency to get. I know I used to say a lot. I always feel like I'm 5 steps ahead of myself. Yeah. I always feel like I'm 5 steps ahead of myself. And I know with parenting, being present, which is exactly what you're talking about, it's not what you do, it's what you say. I mean, it's not what you say, it's what you do, right? They're looking at, are you present? Are you here? Are you listening? I love that. So that is kind of incorporating the map of consciousness into your healthy adult is a way to integrate the energy you're looking at and pivotizing it.
And, as you say that, it's really helping me to understand, like, I've even incorporated that map of consciousness into, like, dating, right? Like, when I look at, when I'm, curious about possibly dating someone, like, where are they on that map of consciousness? What are their daily thoughts? Where do they normally hover in that map of consciousness? In terms of, like, their vibration, their mindset, and then also, relating that with my children. I mean, I have the map of consciousness printed on my refrigerator. Aww. And it's helping my kids understand where they can choose to be.
Oh, I love that. I love that. She's a little pivot coach.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have 3 girls.
I know. I love that. So, are you still involved with horses and rodeo and all of that, or is that something you're involved in? I remember the first time I met you, you came in the darling outfit with I think you even had boots on, and I thought, oh,
not wear boots to California.
No, I actually think you did it because it was. No. It wasn't the rodeo getup. You're very stylish, but boots are stylish. But anyway, I remember when you walked in, I'm like, wow, I'm so excited to work with this woman. You had that energy that I knew kind of you were looking to settle it down and get it focused. And you're very bright. So all of that matched together. It was such a gift for me to work with you. But I'll never forget some of the stories. I was doubled over in laughter when we started talking about, the relationships you've been in and your rodeo days and all that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, now I'm channeling all that through my girls, and it's really fun. They compete. And
so barrel riders, like you were a barrel rider, right?
Yes, they barrel race, and it's really fun. But more than anything, it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. But the reason that I invest in it so much is because it builds a connection with my family. They started to really get into it when I was when we filed for divorce, and that can fracture a family unit, but it's one thing we all do together in a car that builds our family connection. And I'm is
your ex involved?
He's amazing. Yeah. I mean, he loves his girls, and I would probably say he comes to every event, and he supports them, and they know their dad's there, and he's an amazing videographer. Yeah, and it's one thing that we all really do together. And my girls, it's a lot of work, when we're there, and they work together. And instead of being separated at a home with technology and the age difference, they're all working together and with animals. It's really beautiful. Yeah, and there's a lot of highway time, so we're talking in the car, we're discussing things. I'm a big fan of Esther Perel also, and like relationships. And so we're just constantly like building connections through that experience, which is really beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's really a great experience. And there's been a lot of healing for my oldest daughter, you know, from our divorce and, you know, things she's experienced in her life that kind of led up to the divorce. And it's been a really, you know, and to know Dad's always there. I mean, Dad's driving hour to 2 to 3 hours to come see them. A lot of times, and driving them. And so it's been a really great healing experience for the girls.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So are you dating?
I am. I am.
You do tell a little something? How's it going?
It's really great. It's really great. Like I said, you know, the map of consciousness is really, really helpful kind of navigate that world. I like being in a relationship. So I tend to pick people that want a relationship and that can show up. Like one of the things that I learned exiting my marriage was like, I want people in my life that can show up and that want to show up and that want to consistently show up and can share reciprocal trust, that want to build reciprocal trust. Those are things that you consciously build every day, is reciprocal trust. And so Pivot has been huge for me in kind of manifesting and creating those relationships with people that are in alignment with me, and for me to get really clear on what I want to create kind of for the next chapter of my life.
I love that, Mary. I'm so happy for you. And I'm sure you've thought about this before, but I just want to name it because it's so beautiful, is that, you know, not to get in the details of all the, you know, stuff around why your marriage needed to end, you know, but I will say that you being brave enough to know that you needed to go and do your work and you could not control what his outcome was going to be, but you really hunkered down and said, okay, I want something different for myself and for my girls, and I want to break this generational pattern. I remember very specifically you sharing that on the first day about why you were coming to do your own work, and it was so beautiful. And in explaining today how your ex-husband now does show up, he does keep his word with you. He, through your modeling, and you actually had to go your different ways for him to rise strong, if you will, with you. And now it sounds to me from what you're sharing, like you guys can both parent in a way that is modeling that reciprocal trust.
And I really want to credit him and his process.
Yes.
That process has been, because he can't share that with me, which is fine. But I will say, you know, again, the law of attraction, like, he's the best version of himself that he's ever been. He's the best father that he has ever been. And I don't have a charge with him anymore through my work. And it's been a really great experience. And it's really great for my kids. And probably one of the most healing gifts I was given through Pivot was my journey of learning that I need to choose myself. I choose myself. I mean, that was the picture that I painted at Pivot, is I choose myself. And when I processed a trauma wound that I had when my mom divorced my father, she had a different perspective. She had a different perspective and sadness and grief in ending that marriage today. But when I realized, I said, Mom, you were choosing yourself. You were drowning emotionally. Like, you had to do that, and you had to raise 3 kids. You were taking care of my mom. And she said, and she never realized that. And she said, you're absolutely right. And she said, of course I was. But that was a huge source of healing for me with my parents getting a divorce. And it really helped me have a positive outlook on a really difficult, courageous decision to leave a marriage of like, I had to choose myself. And through that, it's reverberated, right? Like, my ex, he chooses himself now, and everyone's happy. So
it's not a choose myself because I'm selfish. It's about choose myself so I can be the healthiest version of me and have deeper, more meaningful, healthier connections, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Aw, that's so cool. Yeah. I love this. I wish I had a recording of 5 minutes of when I first met you, and now this. It's always been so beautiful inside and out, but I just love the growth that you're expressing that you've had in your own journey through, pivot and other modalities, which are important. So I love that you're sharing that. And
I really want to reinforce kind of the process. Like, I didn't go to 1.0. I went to 1.0 and I loved it so much. I was at 2.0 in 2 months. And then the next year I was at another 2.0. And then this last year, I went for a weekend intensive amidst, intermittent coaching sessions with Fernando. Plus, I have my wonderful therapist who I've seen for 9 years. Like, there's been a lot of work in getting to this place, but Pivot is really, really, really touched me and blessed me, and it's what I value most is relationships, and it's really given me the tools how to nurture those relationships.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up. I love that. And I also want to give a shout out to Brian O'Shea.
Brian.
Yeah, who got us connected a while back. And thank you, Mary. Thank you for showing up on Healthier Hour and continuing to be so real and honest, and it's just it's beautiful on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you and all the work that you've done.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, let's stay connected.
Definitely.
And
I'll be at your Healthier Hour every month when I can. It's almost every.
Yeah, it's always fun to see you there. And any last thoughts before we wrap?
No, just gratitude for all the work that you've done and creating this which is just, a vessel of healing for so many people.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck with those 3 beautiful daughters. I want updates.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Okay.